I used to worry about what other people might think or what my competitors might say until this one day when I tried to pay my bills with their opinions.
Oh, love it.
Welcome to the Fitpreneurs, the show that will help you flex your business muscles so you can make more money and live the life you really want. No more complaining, whining, or being a wimp. It's time to pump up your fitness business and push yourself beyond your comfort zone. So no girly men or lazy ladies allowed. It's time for me to do some push-ups and turn things over to your host, Simon Lovell.
Hello, this is Simon Lovell and welcome to the Fitpreneurs. So excited to have my very special co-host for this episode, the wonderful, wonderful Katie Bulmer Cook. Welcome to the Fitpreneurs podcast.
Hello, and thanks for inviting us on.
I am so excited about this episode because it's going to help shift a lot of personal trainers in their businesses. And before we do that, I just want to give the guys a bit of an update. This is a huge episode. I'll tell you why, because technology is changing. And while I'm recording this podcast now, there's an app called Periscope. So I've got the guys watching me on Periscope Live. So if you want to get a behind the scenes of the Fitpreneurs being recorded live, then you can head to Periscope, find Simon Lovell, and there's an image on me of there. Pick the one with the most followers because I've got 2 profiles on there. And you can actually catch this episode before it goes out live on iTunes. I am absolutely loving the Periscope app, and I'm actually putting together a program called Fitproscope for this. Katie, have you started using this platform at all? Have you heard of it? Anything that you started using with it yet? Or is this kind of, are you a Periscope virgin?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say a Periscope veteran, but I've had quite a few goes with it. I really like it. I've used it for health and fitness Q&As, sharing bits and pieces about different places that I go, different workouts that I've done. I am a big, big fan of Periscope.
I think it's fantastic. Something which is so good about it is that, if we look at things like email marketing, we look at Facebook, all these kind of things, they're great, but if we know how powerful something like a text message is because people are constantly on their phones all the time. And, something like Periscope, you're instantly able to get into someone's living room, behind the scenes on a podcast. And people love that. They love to be behind the scenes. It's like that Big Brother style thing. And so I think there's so much potential for the industry. And in fact, I'm going to be doing a whole episode once I've, dialed in Periscope a little bit more, especially for Fitpreneurs viewers. So guys, what you want to do, first of all, as a first point of contact for this brand new platform, you want to add me up so you can see these episodes before they go live. Also add up Katie, and some of the best strategies are just by following people and seeing what they are doing. Katie, let's wind back and give the guys a bit of an overview as to what how you started in the industry. Where did you first start to get your passion for health and fitness? And we can talk about The Apprentice. We can talk about your new book, all the stuff that you've got coming out. But I just want to give the guys a sense of what does it take to be a real fitpreneur. But where did it all start for you?
Well, my first step to becoming a fitness entrepreneur was a very, very long time ago. It wasn't as an adult. In fact, it was when I was 4 years old, sat in the corner of a dusty old church hall watching my mum teach aerobics back in 1990. And I just remember being absolutely captivated by the lycra, the leotards, the push-down socks, the music, everything about it. And for me, there was never anything else that I was going to do. Nobody ever had to ask us, what are you going to be when you grow up? Everybody knew I was just going to try and be a mini version of my mum. And my first step really was doing my exercise to music qualification when I was 16. Nobody would give us a chance in the big health clubs when I was 16. Nobody wanted to give us a class. No one let us get my foot in the door. So instead, I just started hiring out community centres, church halls, started my own classes, and went from there. Worked as a group fitness instructor since I was 16. I'm 29 now. I've worked as a PT for the last 8 years. I do a lot of speaking, a lot of presenting, And yeah, 12 years ago, it seems like it's just a second ago. It's gone so fast.
Where did you start that momentum when it came to, being, more of a presenter, more of someone that was, that was going to be in the media? Was it, for me, it was just that second decision that I was just going to do that. How did you transition into being a trainer into more of the kind of the media stuff? Because I think that's an important lesson on some of the key decisions that you decided to make and the fears that you overcame.
Well, I just really felt that where I live in Sunderland, I've helped a lot of people be fitter, be healthier, etc. And I thought really the only other way that I can have a bigger geographical reach is if I'm on bigger platforms. So that was the decision. And I started using Twitter, following some journalists on there. Initially just started offering expert opinion for some articles in magazines. And I would say that was the first step. And I think that can be quite a scary step because all of a sudden you're on a bigger platform. The bigger the platform, the more people want to shoot at you. But I think just being a little bit fearless and just putting yourself out there a little bit, being uncomfortable about picking up the phone and speaking to a few journalists, that was the uncomfortable part for me, but that was definitely where it started.
Got it. In this episode, we're going to be talking about you were on The Apprentice, and I want to base this episode around trainers who kind of have a job and want to transit full time into the industry, because I feel that there are a lot of people who they want to be serving and doing what you're doing, which is serving a lot of people over a big capture area, but they're just scared. They have fear around that transition, that movement from a job into something which is full time. Obviously, your scenario is a bit different, but let's talk around some of the fears and some of the things that you've overcome, and maybe some of the decisions that you've made that when you look back, you thought, that was actually really easy for me. For someone who's in that situation, what advice would you give someone that's in that position of, I want to transit full time into the industry, but I'm just scared and fearful of taking that jump?
It's definitely a big jump. I mean, luckily for me, I decided to do it while I was still living at home. So I didn't have, the big financial commitments, the mortgage, the car, etc. So it was a little easier for me to make that big leap. But I think one of the big things I learned from going on The Apprentice was you have to just take a chance. And when I left, I had to leave my business on its own for 7 weeks. So I guess that's a similar scenario. And just have good systems in place before you take the leap. So, for example, have long-term clients on a long-term commitment, working towards a long-term goal. Don't be doing things where you're dependent on people showing up. Will they show up? Will they not? Have really good systems that will ensure that you can keep generating income, so that when you do make that leap, that you've got something to fall back on.
Definitely. Let's talk about The Apprentice and how that came about, first of all. Where was your head in that kind of place of wanting to go on the show? What were the steps? What were some of the things you had to overcome? I'm sure that you had to plug through and keep on going. When I had my book published by HarperCollins, it was a case of just chugging through and just continuing to push and push and push until I got the outcome that I wanted. How was it with The Apprentice? I'd love to know that story, and I'm sure the guys listening would love that as well.
But it was more other people that encouraged us to apply than it was me. There was quite a few of my clients said, Kate, I've seen the applications up. You should apply for that. So I just one night, I was a bit bored and went online, saw the application form, filled it in, didn't really think anything more of it. That was in, I think it was the October time, and they said, if you've been successful, you'll find out in January. And I did honestly forget about it. I thought, I'm not corporate enough. I'm not cutthroat enough for this show. But they just kept ringing us and asking us to come back for audition after audition. And I have to say, those apprentice auditions are the scariest thing I've ever done.
Tell us about that.
I've never, ever felt more outside my comfort zone. So I think most PTs, this will resonate with you. To get dressed up and suited and booted, it's like you're very dressed. When your normal is leggings and trainers, feeling big, suited and booted feels like a big deal. So that made us feel uncomfortable for a start. When I got there, everyone was like, sharp suits. The girls were like super glam, wearing amazing heels and everything. And I felt very much out of place. The first audition, this is quite a funny story. We were asked, there was 10 of us in a row, and we were asked to step forward at random and sell ourselves in 30 seconds. So we had no preparation for this. Like, literally, you're just told you're going to have 30 seconds. We're going to call your name, your number at random, and go. And all I could think was, please, please, please don't say my number first. I was number 8. Just please don't say number 8. Please don't say number 8. Luckily, number 2 was called first. And this guy, very smartly dressed, stepped forward, spoke very passionately about how he loved recruitment consultancy and how he thought he'd be the best business partner for Lord Sugar. And then his 30 seconds was up, so he stepped back. And my first thought was, this guy, he was really quite boring. He was a little bit vanilla. There was nothing particularly exciting about him. But what I did think was, I didn't want to go first. Hats off to him for having a good try. When he stepped back, I started to clap. But nobody else was clapping. And everyone was looking at me, and my clapping just got slower and slower and slower. And I can't remember what I said in my 30 seconds. But what I do know is that, in that first opportunity to make an impression, I did something different to my competitors. And I'm convinced that inappropriate clapping was the first step on my apprentice journey.
So what was the plan for you had you got the job?
What was my business plan? My business plan was a healthy eating restaurant.
Got it.
So taking food that is traditionally seen as unhealthy and doing the healthy version of it, so that eating out as somebody who wants to look after themselves doesn't become a bit of an ordeal. So
the strategy for you was really to combine this new business under the employment of Alan Sugar to then potentially have the other businesses which you had at the same time?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Clever.
So, unfortunately, I was close, but not close enough. But I did learn loads of amazing things from that process.
Yeah, what did you take away from it that's really helped your business now, in the months since the show? You must have, like you said, got some huge lessons just from being around the whole production of it, let alone, the learning from the other people, the challenges, the outside of your comfort zone, the mental stimulation of it. What's really happened in the business since?
The main thing I learned about myself was that if you don't have to know all the business jargon to be good at business. There's a lot of people that talked a good game, but they were empty words. In terms of how I've developed my business since, one of the main things I learned was to be more direct and not be scared of doing things that seem like a big deal. So, for example, for me, now if I've decided that I want something, I want to pursue something, I'll just find the number of the person and I'll pick up the phone and I'll ring them. The old Katie, the pre-apprentice Katie, would have thought, oh God, I can't ring them. Like, why would they be interested in speaking to me? I'd get really nervous about it. Totally overcome that now. I've become a much better negotiator, haggling for things, whether it be equipment, venues, whatever it may be. That has definitely been a big change.
Oh, I want to bring up the topic of confidence with trainers when it comes to being on the gym floor versus in business. It's hugely different, isn't it?
Oh, massively. Being on the gym floor, I guess, is where we feel most comfortable. We're in an environment that we feel comfortable in. We are, top dog. We know our stuff when it comes to training, when it comes to nutrition. And then I think being in fitness can be quite fluffy and nice, but the business side of things can be quite harsh and to the point.
Yep.
That's my biggest contrast. So the Katie that does the PT Katie can be quite different to business Katie. I think you've got to have, if you're going to be really successful at combining the two, you've got to have two different hats.
Got it. What's your opinion on this? You know, a lot of trainers go into the industry, and this is coming back to the confidence issue. A lot of trainers go into the industry because they're lacking in confidence, and so they build, muscle definition. They build this kind of outer shell of a different body, but deep down, when it comes to the business stuff, there's still that lack of self-worth. What will people think of me? And it's almost like a different level of confidence that has to be built. You obviously built and strengthened that during the apprentice. What would be some of your advice to other trainers that are going through that have maybe been in that situation where they've gone into the industry to get that confidence, but they're still suffering from it?
That's a big question. Honestly, I think it's about baby steps. So you won't overnight become this amazingly confident person from the inside out. I think you've just got to do something every day that feels like a challenge to you, whether that's a phone call, whether that's approaching a new client, whether it's following up a lead, putting on a new program. Just do one little thing every day, and your confidence will build from there. I've felt myself by doing that over the last 12 years that I've made huge progress. And that was amplified in the 7 weeks I spent doing the apprentice. But it has to be little steps, because otherwise it's too much, and then you can feel like throwing in the towel.
You know, if someone's looking to quit their job and go to be a full-time trainer, because that's the topic of this podcast today, I want to talk a bit about support network, family, friends, because a lot of people have a lot of people around them who are drained, don't they? And so, you've probably built yourself, a circle of network that really supports you. How important do you feel that is, and what are some of your personal experiences with that, with removing some toxic people? And also, there's a lot of people in the industry who just love to bitch, honestly. I'm sure you've got some views on that.
Yeah, I'm really lucky. Obviously, my mum's in the industry, so she's always been dead supportive, as have my dad and my husband. But I think when it comes to the industry, I think it's really hard to find people that would be supportive of you in the industry. I think if you can find somebody that is going to be a bit of a backbone for you who works in the industry, then hang on to them, because they're like gold dust. One of my big things is that I don't really look at, when it comes to social media, I don't look at what other trainers are up to. I don't get involved in any of the big debates. I think, the fitness industry is big enough for us all to train clients in a range of different ways. I don't get drawn into that stuff. And I think if you spend your time more productively and with people who are like-minded, then you'll definitely be on the fast track to success. I think social media has a hell of a lot to answer for when it comes to being confident and being successful in the industry. The best thing, in my opinion, to do is not really pay attention to what other people are doing and just focus on your own game.
So if you're putting your time, effort and energy into other people, then that could be time spent generating leads, closing sales, and taking it to the next level in your business. So
yeah, I would totally agree with that. Time to me is precious. I don't have a lot of it, so I'd much rather spend my time doing something that's going to benefit me and my clients, rather than getting involved in any sort of Facebook debate that, number one, wastes your time, number two, drains your confidence, and number three, doesn't portray a very professional image.
Let's go back to Alan Sugar. What's he like?
He is exactly as you see him on the television. I think a lot of people think that he sits and has a coffee with us when the cameras aren't rolling and stuff, but that's certainly not the case. He is probably the wittiest man I've ever met. All of the one-liners, all of the put-downs, all of the sharp comments, they just roll off his tongue. He doesn't stop. There's no script. He is the wittiest man I've ever met.
What were some of some of the personal interactions you had with him? Were you kind of scared to meet him? Were you fearful? Were you kind of how are you?
Yeah, I was nervous, and every time we sat in the boardroom and you're waiting for him to come in, so Kevin and Nick are sat there, and then you hear his footsteps coming along the corridor, and my heart was like beating out my chest, and I just used to have to think, right, calm down. I used to take a big breath in, big breath out, and then just say in my head, right, let's go. because I used to get so nervous. Like every time he said my name, I'd be like, oh my God, what is he going to say next?
So let's talk about your book a little bit. What was this decision to write that? I want to talk about, a little bit later on in the show about decision making, having people, make that decision to quit and actually tell their boss that they quit as opposed to be fired, the opposite to the very thing that was on the show. But when it comes to you making decisions and setting goals, talk about the book and why you decided to do that. And, had it been on your mind for a while, and did you have fear around it, around writing it? Like, what was your thought process with the book and leading up to, its release?
It was been something that had been on my mind for a while, and I was lucky enough to be introduced to a guy called Rick Smith, who has a publishing house, and I said to him, I would like to write a book. I don't know where to start. I feel like I've got something that I can share with people. I think I've got, some funny stories, some good life experiences, but I think there's some good business lessons that can be put out there, not just for people in the fitness industry, but for anyone starting a business, any SME. So I chatted through my ideas with him, and he thought it was great. So he agreed, and we started writing the book. And it just went from there. But my biggest fear around it was actually that it was going to be published and that people were going to read it, which I know sounds silly, given that it was my idea. But I've shared some quite personal stories in there that not many people know. I've shared thoughts and opinions on people from The Apprentice, and it gives you like a bit of the background story to how I was feeling, things you might not have seen on the show, like the emotional challenges, the business challenges, and the challenge of being away from home. So for somebody who's quite private, anyone that follows us on social media, you'll know that very rarely do you hear us say anything about my family or post any pictures of my family. I'm quite a private person, so my big fear was that now the world and his wife can read my personal thoughts and my personal experience, but it's it's a bit late for that now. I've done it.
Must be quite liberating to get it all out there. What I find with my clients is a lot of time once they start sharing their personal stories, it releases sometimes a lot of personal issues that they are holding on to because it has no power. Once it's out there, it's out there. Just like my kind of my addiction stories and my gambling and stuff like that. It's just you don't hold the emotional blocks to the stuff that you fear judgment around.
Yeah, I've done it now. It's too late. Can't take it back.
So let's talk about trainers in the industry. Why do you think most fail, to grow their businesses? What would you say some of the biggest mistakes are?
Biggest mistakes, I would say number one is not realising their own worth and their own value.
Yep, totally.
And not realising the value you can add and the change you can make to a client's life. I would say secondly, they make the mistake of trying to be everything to everybody, which I certainly did when I first started out. I became much more successful as a PT when I developed more of a specialism. So when I stopped just training everybody and focused specifically on training women and working with pre and postnatal clients. So I think having a specialism is really important. I think this is maybe a bit of an obvious one, but stop trading your time for money. Instead, create a package and create more value there. And I think the other reason people fail is they spend too much time worrying about what other people are doing and not enough time on themselves. And I suppose in addition to that, I really don't think it's enough now, like in 2015 onwards, to just be a good trainer.
No.
I don't think it's enough just to get your client, which sounds a crazy thing to say, but just to get your clients really good results, I don't think that's enough. I think now you have to be a bit of a hybrid. You have to be a really good trainer, but you have to be able to think like a marketeer. You have to be good at closing sales. You have to be good at lead generation. You have to be like a social media guru. You need to be a web designer. Like everything, it's not enough just to be in good shape and help other people get in good shape.
Got it. And it's my belief that just beyond even the nutrition and the training, like the real reason why people come to see trainers, is people have relationship issues and they have other issues. So when trainers can then invest in things like NLP or life coaching and stuff where they can add more value or at least bring other people in that can help with those issues, I think a lot of the challenge is people don't really identify the true problem. They don't ask the right questions. People bring people into the industry and it's like, well, I want to lose weight, I want to get fit. Okay, you handle the nutrition and the exercise, but the underlying problem is still there.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about, to me, first meeting a client, it's all about digging deeper. Chris, if I had £1 for every time someone said I want to lose weight and tone up, I'd be a millionaire. But you've got to be able to dig a little bit deeper and get into someone's mind and find out the whys so you can help fix them from the inside out.
What have been the best channels for you for getting leads, getting clients, building value? Is there any particular ones that you're particularly drawn to? Any strategies that you want to share that are good?
100% Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And in addition to ads, prior to using ads, just being really consistent with it.
Yes.
And not just posting any old crap, just saying, oh, I'm doing this or I'm doing that, but giving people something that they say is being good value. So giving some advice that people can take away and use rather than just putting a status up for the sake of it. But I think being consistent is really important and letting people know that you're not going to disappear. You are a reliable person on social media, therefore you will be a reliable trainer in real life.
Got it. What's your kind of daily routine? What do you do to kind of, set yourself up for the day? We talk about consistency. I think consistency is so important. I'm always posting some of the Facebook. I've got my Periscope now. People are following me. I'm sending emails out. I'm hustling. I'm doing joint ventures. And I think that's why I've gotten to where I've gotten to. And I think you're the same. I think it's starting. Actually, I did a post yesterday talking about the importance of, what goes into our brains. A lot of people spend time playing video games, watching TV, being around toxic people. And there's that quote from Jim Rohn, which I've talked about before, which is you've got to be the guard of what's going into your brain. So what's your kind of routine to make sure that you're in the right headspace?
Well, I've got to be honest, I'm a complete bore because I do the same thing every day, but I must be doing something right because it seems to work. The first thing I do on a morning is I train my group PT, family as I call them. They are the most motivated, lovely group of people to be around. So I'm starting the day off with good people. I'm a crazy person for lists and the way I order my lists and how I tick things off them. So there's always a list. I work out every morning because I think that just puts you in an amazing frame of mind. And I'm really strict on my time, so I'll box off. There'll be an hour where I do this, an hour where I do that, and I never go over my deadlines. That's what keeps us on track.
Nice. Let's talk about PT of the Year and that. How did that come about, and how did you feel?
That was one of the most special nights of my whole life. I didn't really think I would win it all. Again, it came from my clients. I'd been reading about the award in a magazine, and I thought, oh, I'd love it. How amazing would it be to win that? And that's all I said. And then a couple of my clients nominated us, and I found out I had to fill in the application form, etc. But when I won that, when they called my name, I'll never forget that. That was an amazing experience, not just to have that trophy and have that title, but the doors that it then opened for us. So with that title, again, more media profile. If journalists were looking for an expert to comment in a magazine or a newspaper, having that title would make them choose me perhaps over someone else. I think one of the things is with these awards, it's another example of putting yourself out there. Like if I hadn't filled in the application form and cringed a little bit at myself, then I wouldn't have won. So I think for anybody who wants to raise their profile a little bit in the industry, look at what awards are up for grabs.
Got it.
Even if you don't win it, you're a runner-up. you're a finalist, and it all mounts up and it all helps to create a bigger profile, which makes you stand out from others around you.
Yeah, that's great. And also, the topic of this podcast, as well as, Apprentice and your story, we're talking about the topic of helping trainers, get out of their full-time job and go into PT full-time. Their part-time job and go into PT. And maybe I had one client who was working, in gutting fish in a supermarket and transisted, out into full-time PT, going from 2K a month to, now to 25, 30K a month within 10 months. It's all achievable. But like you say, you've got to make those key decisions. A really good question to ask yourself, guys, is if you are in that place of, you're in a job and you want to be helping people full time. As Kate is talking, like get excited about the things that you're going to be able to do when you're spending the majority of the time in the industry that you love, not spending the time doing something that you don't love. And ask this question: what specifically needs to happen for me to make the move? Because a lot of the time, I think what happens, I don't know if you agree, Katie, but we don't get specific enough. We set goals, personal trainers set goals for their clients, specific goals, which they attain and they reach and they celebrate. But trainers don't have goals for themselves and they don't have specifics that, okay, I want to quit my job. Well, okay, that's fine, but that's going to carry on going for years and years if you don't make the decision to say, right, I'm going to quit it on this specific date in August. And in order for that to happen, I need to earn X amount more, or I need to do something where I know I know specifically where the transition point is. It's like now I'm in process to move to San Diego, and it's a big move to the UK, to the States. There's visa stuff to happen. But what happened was I spent a lot of time saying to myself, I'd love to move to America. And until I actually sat down and went, I'm not happy right now. Why? And I said to myself, well, and I asked the question, what about moving to America? And it was like, well, I haven't actually made the decision. And then once I made the decision and decided and committed, which I think is key, then you can start to get the ball rolling. But the difference between an open-ended dream and a decisive decision, a date, an action that you get the ball rolling is critical.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. It can't just be like fluffy. It has to be what and when.
Got it. Again, back to some of the fears that you may have had in some of the things you do. You're talking about, just those key decisions applying, for the apprentice, or, the small decisions in your business. What's really shifted for you now when it comes to your decision-making process? You talked earlier about, just picking up the phone and calling people now. What are some of the big mindset shifts that you would say people need to, instantly action?
I just always ask myself, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And I think if you can ask yourself that question, and then just go and do it. I know it sounds like an easy thing to say, just go and do it, but I always just say now, what's the worst that could happen? I speak to this person on the phone, and they've decided that whatever I'm calling them about isn't for them. That's fine. There'll be somebody else that is. Just what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. And another thing, I think, if someone's in a job and they want to transition into full-time PT, like you talked earlier, which was key, which was systems. And I think if there's no clear idea of how things are going to work once they've quit the job, that creates a lot of fear and doubt. But once people are clear on the fact that a simple Facebook marketing funnel leading into being able to sell and generate leads gives people confidence to move forward, that's key, isn't it?
100%. You've got to have things in place that not just make sure that everything around you is secure, but makes you feel like you're on top of everything. Because as sometimes in the past being guilty of just like my head get too full and then being totally overwhelmed by everything I've got to do and then feeling like I can't do it. But when you've got systems in place, you feel like you're much more in control and you can see how everything's going to pan out and you've got a clear plan. And that is a much nicer feeling than waking up every day and going, oh my God, what am I going to do today?
Now, even though you had systems in place, something I've talked about before, which is key, which is sometimes it's actually good to step away from, the gym or somewhere, because it starts to bring up some system challenges, right? What were some of the things that when you went away, it was like, oh, okay, now I know that I need to dial that in so that I can spend more time away, if that makes sense?
I think the apprentice taught us that in some respects, I'd created for myself a job as opposed to a business.
That's huge. That's a huge realization.
But I honestly think it took having 7 weeks away from the internet and my mobile phone and my normal life to show us that there were things I was doing that were just a job, like just going through the same motion every week. And what would happen? That was a big, like, what would happen if I broke my leg last week? Then what would I do? And how would I train my clients? Then how would I still generate an income? So I set up a lot of things before I went. So I used my email marketing. That was all scheduled up before I went away. A new online program that people could just go and to my website, buy and download. Just little bits and pieces like that. Removing myself from my own emails, having somebody else answer my emails. That was a big one. And sometimes it's a bit of a process of letting go. It's not just creating a system. Sometimes you have just got to let go of things a little bit, like the thought of someone else answering me emails before would just drive me insane. But it works really well, frees up my time to do other things.
Let's talk about overwhelm a little bit. You touched on that. Procrastination, overwhelm, Facebook, social media. It's such a a big thing that draws people away from actually getting shit done. Some of the things that you learn, I'm sure, like being away from, the technology, like you say on The Apprentice, really helped you to knuckle down and just get on with stuff. Did you notice old patterns start to come back? Did you change any habits? Do you still have some things? I mean, we all do. And how have you started to maybe overcome some of those so that you can be more productive?
I try my very best to only look at social media 3 times a day. Sometimes it's more, depending on what I'm doing, but I try my absolute best to do it on a morning, at lunchtime, and then on an evening, because sitting looking through the news feed of Facebook can become like a massive zap on your time and your energy. So I try and just stick to those 3 times. Same for Twitter and Instagram, because it is important to be on it and to be active, but not to the point where it's stopping you doing the things that you should be doing.
It's my belief that if there's a trainer who wants to go out full time and they're working in a job, that if that job was pulled away from them, that they would have to make it happen. They would have to do things to easily, I would say, earn what they're currently earning in a full-time job in full-time training. They'd have more available time. They would be more passionate. They'd have more energy to go about that. What would you say to that? And also in relation to the tasks that you had on The Apprentice, in terms of like just hustling and getting stuff done. There's so much you can do in a really short space of time, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. And if The Apprentice taught us anything, it certainly taught us that. Making big business decisions that you would normally in the real world have months to make within like 20 or 30 minutes. And it is amazing when you put yourself under a little bit or a lot of pressure, what you can actually achieve, so much more than you think you could if you feel like you've got forever and a day to achieve it. So I think a little bit of pressure is good, just to push you to do that little bit extra. Like you say, if your job was taken away tomorrow, what would you do? You would definitely act. You would definitely be more productive. You definitely make more calls, make more of the leads that you've got, etc. So maybe it's worth setting yourself your own little apprentice challenge. Turn your phone off for 2 days and imagine that you haven't got a job, and then see what happens.
Yeah, you just have to make it work. You'd have to hustle, and I love the word hustle, and and I'm a big hustler. I love setting myself challenges, and that's why it works so well in health and fitness, right? When you set people a challenge, especially guys, they love to take a challenge and they want to beat other people. And I'm sure it's the same. You've probably got more experience with the female market than I have. But people love to, and that's what part of the appeal of Apprentice, right? It's like, I want to beat these people. How have you found it? Like you say, your own challenges with clients has had an impact on keeping them focused.
I am the most competitive person you'll ever meet. I challenge anyone to say that they're more competitive than me. That's a challenge in itself. and I try and pass that on to my clients. I give them a lot of mini challenges, so like 3-day, 7-day challenges, just little things. I give them training partners, challenge buddies, so they've got to compete against each other, but with each other for the same common goal at the same time. And I've found personally with my clients that all those little tiny steps along the way, and like going back to what I said about baby steps before, that's the real key to getting them to the big goal at the end. I find now that I think things have changed. Like, say 6 years ago, you could set someone a 4-week goal and that would be enough. But and now I think life's changed. People want things like faster, harder, like at a bigger pace. So people want 3-day challenge. Right, I can do that. Now give us another 3 days. I just think the way people's minds work is different now.
Yeah, and also I think social media is, our brain capacity is shortening. So people want like just smaller distractions, and they want to commit for less amount of time. But you can still get people on longer programs, like you say. Though we just need to give and attract people in with different things, and that's the great thing about marketing too. Once you've got smaller little challenges. You can start to use it like kind of little different bits of bait to draw in more customers, because you've got more to offer. You've got a 4-week something running, you've got an 8-week thing running, you've got a 3-day thing running, and it's a great way to draw in new clients too.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So how can people get hold of your book? And yeah.
Well, it's on Amazon now. It's on pre-order for Kindle. And it's out on paperback now. It's called No Added Sugar by Katie Bulmer Cook. And yeah, Amazon is the place to go and get it.
Definitely suggest the guys get that, if not for just the stories and all the awesome tips and advice that they're going to be able to get from you. One last piece of advice, one big thing, if you could give a trainer one bit of advice of anything that they can go in action, because what I want the guys to do listening to this podcast is not just listen and get the stimulation of information, but also use that information in something which is actionable, attainable, that they can move forward straight away and get results from.
Oh, that's a big question. Just one piece of advice. Does it have to be very specific, or can it be a general piece of advice?
Just one piece of advice that you would want to give any trainer to help them move forward, something they can, just go in action, go and do, or a mindset hack, or something that they can adjust in their day, or something that they'll help them, change more lives or change their own lives.
Okay, well, a little bit of mindset then, because I have this quote up in my office and I look at it all the time, and it goes like this. I used to worry about what other people might think or what my competitors might say, until this one day when I tried to pay my bills with their opinions.
Oh, love it. Absolutely. That's a fantastic quote. Good stuff. Katie, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show and share this with the guys. And I'm sure many of them will be reaching out and getting hold of your book. Thank you so much
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for the time. And guys, if you're on Periscope, go and add up Katie and also me so that you can check out these live episodes before they go live on iTunes. We will see you in another episode of The Fitpreneurs. Take it easy.
Guys, thanks for the killer episode. Listen, if you want to take your fitness business to the next level, terminate your competition, create ultimate freedom, buy new houses, cars, which could blow up, travel the world, or open your own gym where you can lift really heavy weights, then head to www.thefitpreneurs.com/free call for details on how to apply for your free accelerator call. Until the next episode, hasta la vista, Fit Pros.